that we have in this world, Dr. Jagdish Sheth, to come for that part. So we'd like to start the session by welcoming you, sir, to this program. And I'll also introduce Mr. Rustam Kerawala, our chairman. He's a graduate from Manipal Institute of Technology, from engineering background. He returned back to Mumbai to start his family business. He entered into hospitality business. And after a few years, spending some time in consulting, he decided to enter into education business and started his school. Being a business professor, I use the language called education business, but he doesn't believe in that part of it. He believes that education is going to empower people. Education is going to bring equity in the society. So first part of the story of his life as an educational entrepreneur was more to build a bigger brand of schools. Then when he fine-tuned the model, not only the business model, but also the academic processes, content, all that part, he decided to take the learnings from the private space and apply that in the public domain. So today, when you look back, we handled 900 government balwadis. We have taken our learnings and processes into government institutions, public institutions, and he's a big proponent of public-private partnership in India in the education space. I welcome Mr. Kerawala and request him to inaugurate the event.
Thank you, Dr. Panda, and welcome all. Welcome especially Dr. Jagdish Sheth. Thank you for the time. I know it's been from your busy schedule, but this is a very important aspect which I thought that should be shared. And yeah, welcome everybody, and I'll leave it to you.
Thank you, sir. Now it's time for my friend, Sim Matthews. So Sim is going to welcome participant parents. He constantly interacts with participants and parents. Yes, Sim, hand it over to you.
A very good evening, Dr. Panda, Dr. Jagdish Sheth, Mr. Rustam Kerawala, and everybody who's watching us this night in this part of the world. It's a very interesting discussion that we look forward to have with Professor Sheth, one of the greatest names in management. And I'm sure a lot of our students and teachers and parents also possibly who are part of this telecast now would be keen on understanding where this world is going, especially post-COVID-19. It's a challenge, and a lot of questions are being asked, especially in today's time when businesses are down, economy doesn't seem to be doing great. People are worried about the tomorrows. The students who are studying business studies and commercial studies and want to understand the business of things a little better in the future. We're looking forward to some silver lining behind these dark clouds. And I'm sure even as we take this step forward in trying to understand what about strategy, what about thinking, what about business ethics, what about business economics, even though our students are studying them, we'd like to hear from you. And so I welcome everybody to this wonderful session, I would call a learning session for each one of us who are going to be participants here. So once again, a very warm welcome to everybody watching us, and a great time ahead with Dr. Sheth. Thank you very much and a warm welcome.
Thank you, Sim, for your kind introduction and welcoming all the parents who are present here. I take this opportunity to introduce Professor Jagdish Sheth. It's a very difficult challenge for me, honestly speaking, because a man's life is so enriched with so much of work. It's very difficult to hold in a couple of minutes of time. I'll try to do that part. There are two parts to my introduction. One part is academician, Professor Jagdish Sheth, which is written on a piece of paper. But other part is a human being whom I know over the years, last 20 years, which is not written, but they're imprinted in our hearts. So I would like to do both part of it today. Professor Sheth is a Charles Ketchett Professor of Business at Emory University, Gorgeous School of Business at Emory. But more than just being a professor, he is globally known as a research scholar in the domain of consumer behavior, relationship marketing, competitive strategy, and geopolitical analysis. From marketing, he moved to geopolitical analysis. Has 50 years of combined experience in teaching and research at University of Southern California, University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign, Columbia University, MIT, and Emory University. In the marketing domain, being a marketing professor, we always dream about winning one award in life. The highest possible 4 awards that a marketing academician can get in his life, Dr. Sheth has got all 4 of them. Richard D. Irwin Distinguished Marketing Educator Award, Charles Coolidge Parlin Award in Marketing Research, P.D. Converse Award for Outstanding Contribution to the Marketing Theory, William Wilkie Award for Marketing for a Better Society. He has got that award. He is a fellow of American Marketing Association, Association of Consumer Research, Association of Psychological Association, Distinguished Fellow of Academy of Marketing Science, Distinguished Fellow of International Engineering Consortium. He got 2 honorary doctorates, one from University of Illinois and one from St. Bernard University. Dr. Sheth has published 300 academically brilliant super papers and more than 20 books. Some of his classic books, which are being revered all over the world and bestsellers, include Clients for Life in 2000, Rule of Three, 2002, Tectonic Shift, 2006, Self-Destructive Habits of Good Company in 2007, Chindia Rising, China and India, Chindia Rising 2011, The Forays of Marketing 2012, Forms of Endearment, one of his classics, Forms of Endearment in 2014, Breakout Strategies of Emerging Markets 2016, The Sustainability Age 2016, Genes, Climate, Consumption, Culture, Connectivity, the dots. They're all 11 dots, but through his academic research and brilliance, he has connected them all together. His book, Theory of Buyer Behavior, anybody who has gone to a business school in his life, I will come across his work first. In our consumer behavior class that he did with James Howard, it was published in 1969 and is cited as one of the marketing classics of the world over a period of time. This is the academic side of Dr. Jagdish Sheth. I met him in 2000. I was a just rookie professor in IIM Lucknow, but over the years, he has guided me. He has really shown a life that everyone wants to aspire to achieve that, all those goals. And he is a leader really to look at, particularly his involvements with Indian Marketing Academy and all the work that he does for doctoral scholars. All of them will definitely leave a longer imprint on our lives and inspire us. Now I will request Dr. Sheth to take over the dais and speak to students and parents, those who are present here. Welcome, sir. Now it's yours.
Yeah. Thank you, Tapan, so much for very nice introduction. Glad to be back with you and Rustam. I know I met you, but Tapan and I, we go a long way. So this is a really my pleasure and honor to be in this group. I think there is another reason why I wanted to do this session. I got very excited when Tapan invited me to do, is that I think management education is going to be much more critical going forward, and I will explain in a moment, but at the high school level. There is a worldwide movement, surprisingly, to have management education come earlier and earlier in curriculum, and I will explain those also in a moment. So this was a great opportunity to articulate my views about why management education is so important in the high school curriculum. Management education to me is learning a language. And just as we learn English as a language, or Spanish or French, whatever it is, just as we learn literacy as a language, because it's 3 hours of learning, reading, writing, and arithmetic. And just as we are going to learn, whether we like it or not, software as a language, management is one of those categories. It is so essential in life. No matter what occupation you go into, no matter what higher education you aspire to, no matter what you do, you want to be an entrepreneur, ultimately principles of management or business are very critical. That's the fundamental reason why I'm so passionate about having management education in high schools. Second reason is that management education is very important in our daily lives. We are all consumers. From the time we are born till we die, we consume all the time. But we don't understand the economy or the psychology of consumption. Are we spending our money wisely? Do we have some unlimited needs and wants with limited resources, time and money? That is all we teach in management education. But as we grow older and go through a career, we become producers also. So we need to understand what the role of a producer of a business is in society. You may be working for a non-business entity, a non-profit, for example, You may be working for a government. Let's say you aspire to become IAS officer or foreign service, Indian foreign service, for example. There also you need management education. Let me just mention that a little more. Today, all the ambassadors of a nation are no longer just dealing with political conflicts and border resolutions, but they have to deal as brand ambassadors. Trade matters so much today than ever before. Economies are all liberalized, they're competing worldwide, and you have all kinds of trade frictions going on with tariffs and non-tariffs. Understanding all that as a diplomat is becoming a necessity now. And they are trying to change their curriculum in their academies as they join the IAS office or the foreign affairs office, whatever it is. And that is also becoming equally important, surprisingly, in the military. Now, here is the irony. Many of the management principles, especially on operations management, logistics, for example, all came from the military. Army actually had in America more mathematical models, what is called operations research, which we taught in postgraduate programs. Now we teach at the undergraduate programs, all came from the military. So military also needs a formal education as young cadet when you join. So that's the background with which I want to talk about. So let's take very importantly something about your being a major if you want to go after high school into the business discipline. If you already have a management as a language, you know what is supply, what's demand, you know what's a double entry, you know what's a strategy, you know what's a brand loyalty, and we all do brand loyalties. I mean, we are loyal to so many programs, daily necessities that we do. I think that language alone gives you an upper hand when you join an engineering college or a business major, wherever you want to go. It becomes even more relevant in a foreign country. Because in many foreign countries, especially in America, they actually do teach some classes in management, such as, for example, leadership on the one hand, but definitely marketing. They really teach marketing in a strong way. You are going to compete in foreign countries with the local citizens who come to that institution, other students who come from other foreign institutions. Having this knowledge alone and the confidence, and as you know, when you go away, you are very lonely. All along you stayed with parents and it was very meaningful. Somebody supported you, the mom, the dad, you know, whoever it is, and now you're on your own. Having this knowledge gives you self-confidence that you can compete or you can do very well in your classes no matter what major you have. So it's going to be even more valuable when you go abroad as a student to do your higher education. I think there are a couple of things that America is doing which I'm quite interested or involved. There is a very good organization called TIE, T-I-E. It is the largest entrepreneurship organization in the world of Indian origin. There are 50,000 members. They're charter members, which means they're really contributing quite a lot. And their mandate is that if you're a successful entrepreneur, you have an obligation to give back to the society and generate more entrepreneurs. So they have actually a training program during high school called TYE, Thai Young Entrepreneurs, where make you write a whole business plan on a concept that you have. At local chapters, then you become a regional competition, and there is a global competition. And you have to see, most of this is Indian children living abroad, essentially, and you'll find fascinating how much they learn. If this is not enough, because these are all good kids at good schools, public schools, private schools, you have an organization called Junior Achievement. Watch that organization. In America, and especially in Atlanta, there is a building built, about $15 million is invested by corporations to provide entrepreneurship as another major mechanism for disadvantaged children, African Americans, Hispanic, or minority groups. I have gone there. They adopt a public school, and about 200 students come every day to learn there how to be an entrepreneur. which means you become a company, you organize a business, you become a chief financial officer, you become the CEO of the company, the leader of the company, you become a human resource person, and they all become the role, and there are instructors who teach them how to become entrepreneurs. It aspires them in a way I've never seen before. And the children are engaged, and they're middle school, surprisingly in their case, because their belief is that middle school is the most impact making. High school, you are now too old. Primary school is too young. That's their view by and large. And there they come and actually do the whole program presentations. So this is universal. The place where this is most valuable is in non-business disciplines. If you want to be an engineer, let's say, having this knowledge again will give you tremendous understanding of what, because ultimately engineers have to work in a business institution of some sort or in a laboratory. The ABCs of business knowledge becomes foundational. At least you can make conversation, if nothing else. That is very important. I think it is equally important if you want to join the family business. And there are many people where the parents are investing in their child to be part of the family business, succession planning. And more younger people are taking over. And this is nothing new. After independence, Indian government encouraged our traditional well-known houses like the Aditya Birla Group, the Tata Group, etc., whatever the groups they were, to send their children abroad to study manufacturing. Because we as a nation, we're a trading nation, and we have to become more a manufacturing. So we manufacture our own products rather than import from abroad or foreign companies manufacturing in India. This is in the 50s. And all of them went to top universities. And when they came back, they ramped up the family business to a scale that was unimaginable. Not only ramped up the business, but they put the processes and procedures which were more global standards, not just domestic standards. So in many ways, I think this is very important. I will take my personal example. I'm a refugee from Burma during World War II, and I come from a merchant community. My father had gone to Burma in 1916, right up around the World War I. British were going to divide the whole British Empire into two capitals. Calcutta was the main capital, but they found that they had to create another capital in Yangon, Rangoon, as we used to call it. They built the whole capital. And they needed the bureaucrats to come and run that, accountants, etc. Then the traders to come and do the trading. So my father went there. He was not even a high school educated, but one of the smartest people I ever met. In fact, as a father-son, we would have a competition. I would use my paper pencil way, not calculator yet, to quickly calculate because of the tables and the numbers, how much will it multiply, divide, and he would be smiling because he would have an answer in his mind before me. Isn't that interesting? So he had learned the knack of real world. We came back, settled down. Ultimately, I settled in Chennai, and I'm a Gujarati, a typical Guju. I would have been back in my native place in Kutch, running a small shop. Small shop meaning primarily a provision store, about 400 square feet, earning about 5,000 rupees a month, and I'll be very happy. I would not know my own potential. But we had to settle down in Chennai, and the first thing you do is to learn English, because English is the medium as opposed to Hindi or Gujarati as the medium. So you begin to think in English. My biggest potential came out not only from nurturing of my sisters who are all older, everybody nurtured me very well, my potential, but English language gave me the mobility. I could think about becoming an academic scholar. Second thing that happened, which has been equally important, my oldest brother had a business of his own in Chennai, making jewelry boxes in a very traditional way. And during high school, during summer, I had to go and be with him to help him out. I learned double accounting system, double entry accounting system with him. Very important to learn from practice. And before I went to college, I knew how to do accounting. So I had a huge advantage over my other colleagues at the school or the university. So practical knowledge, school of hard knocks, will be important as the cognitive knowledge, the reasoning why. So when I was working at my brother's place, I always was fascinated about people. I was good in accounting, but I was always interested in what motivates people, what motivates workers, what motivates my customers, for example. And that is why I eventually went into marketing to study the motivation of consumers. What motivates them? Why do they buy my products? Why are they becoming loyal? And these are the very key questions. So you do need the cognitive knowledge, because in practice you can get how to, but you don't know why. And this foundational knowledge about why, and suddenly I got interested in psychology in the process, and I studied, my major was behavioral sciences, my minor was social psychology, was fascinating. Compared to where I was as a small shopkeeper, not even a high school educated, to where I am is all due to that investment in literacy, investment in English as a language, working in a family business, and everything was the foundation for me. So I'm a very strong advocate that as soon as one can learn in high school, the more prepared you will be in whatever career you want to go. I'll take one more minute. Most successful entrepreneurs are not business people. Social entrepreneurs, or activists as we call them, are even stronger. Our own founder of the nation, Mahatma Gandhi, was an entrepreneur, social entrepreneurship, which means organizing, activism. In India today, we have so many good social entrepreneurs. If you want to do something that is not profit-making, you still need the same skill set. How do you become an entrepreneur? How do you manage people? How do you manage movement? How do you manage a mission? But my real interest is the following. The best entrepreneurs I find are all the musicians, the rock stars, the band. Beatles were entrepreneurs. Think about that. Most of them have no interest in formal studies. Mentally, they're checked out. They're obsessed about what they want to do. And I saw that obsession in music, especially. And they're constantly playing the band in their own garage. You know, parents allow them to get together. They go into small clubs and they become superstars. So entrepreneurship is universal, first of all. Entrepreneurship recognizes no gender. Men and women can be entrepreneurs. Entrepreneurship is the real advantage of a nation. It does not recognize faith. No matter what faith you belong to, there are entrepreneurs. It does not recognize age. Young people are entrepreneurial, like the TYE University that we have created. And of course, older people are great entrepreneurs. Illiterate people are great entrepreneurs, maybe better than literate people. They are obsessed about what they want to do. But every entrepreneur then you talk to say, I wish I had some business knowledge. I wish somehow people had told me how to negotiate with venture capitalists. People had told me I wish how to write a business plan. I would have been much wiser, smarter in my business than ever. So ultimately, surprisingly, management education in high school is not only foundational just for going to business majors like undergraduate BBA degrees anywhere in the world, but it is very important to people who don't want to go in business, or who want to be a social activist, or who want to be a lawyer, who wants to be an engineer. It makes no difference. So I really, really liked Tapan's suggestion that can you do this presentation or talk and pick up questions on management education in high school. Thank you. I'll pick up any questions you have, Tapan.
Thank you, sir. I have got a set of questions from students which we have collected before. So the one of the questions from a younger kid is about your childhood days. So they wanted to understand your childhood days. Did you face a pandemic like this or anything like this which impacted you when you were a child?
I did. As I mentioned, I was born in Burma or Myanmar. Just around World War II, Japanese took over the country. They were coming all the way to India, which was the richest nation to conquer. That was the dream. And Burma is right next door. And we became refugees. My father that I mentioned, I had older sisters. My mother was very worried about soldiers can do bad things to people, and she wanted us to leave, but my father's livelihood was there. He had brought 2 of his brothers, as well as his cousin brothers, 4 families. And of course, you are a minority because you're not Burmese. So when the time came to leave, we had to rush to the last ship, became a refugee, lost everything. And we are a middle class people. Wealthy people get early warnings, early signals, so they can take their capital out first, and then the people out, very interestingly. We had nothing. We lost everything in the process. And we struggled very hard. For 6, 7 years, we had nothing. My father actually became what we now call clinically depressed, sat in a corner for 4 years, would not talk to anybody, because his whole life had collapsed. My mother and my sisters especially did extra work. Whatever small jewelry my mother had brought, my father was a Gandhian, so he did not believe in any systems about marriage and divorce and dowry and all this stuff. And whatever little jewelry that she had brought, we began to pawn, especially among other families who were supportive, to say, we'll give you some cash. You have a shortage of milk, shortage of kerosene, no electricity in those days, but you survive that. So the key thing about COVID analog is that humans are probably the most versatile species who know how to improvise, how to survive. We survive better than any of the vegetations, industrial raw materials, or animals, etc., whatever they are. So I believe very strongly in survival instinct. And once you overcome that, it builds a sort of internal character. And that gives you the anchor. With that anchor, you are not spoiled by anything. Just like in many cases, faith gives an anchor, family gives an anchor. In my case, it was this dislocations. And I've always believed that a dislocation in life, if you survive, is the strongest foundation or a character that you build. So I'm very, very happy in the process that it forced me to do things differently. I did not become a complacent person. Living in Chennai by Gujarati is like living in a foreign country, different language, different customs, and you get used to it. So we know the instinct. And I must tell you, Tapan, I actually did research, just now wrote a paper about the pandemic situation. The first thing I learned is the improvisation. Everybody knew how to improvise. So Indian weddings now, you cannot get together at Indian weddings. So interestingly, they did the wedding at their garage area in the outdoors, driveway area, and all of the people came in cars. Funeral arrangements were done differently because you cannot go to a funeral anymore, see? So learning to improvise is the best skill you will ever create in yourselves, and you cannot create that till you experience an adversity in life.
So thank you. Very nice question, sir. Thank you for the answer, sir. Sir, there is a question just now put by a parent. The parents are finding it very difficult to guide the student to learning, right? They find very difficult for the child to focus on. From your life story, it looks like parents haven't played that kind of a role where they asked you to study or they made you to look into the course structure and do that part. If you're like a self-learned person, you grew up in that way. Today's parents are a bit confused in that way. Should they allow the child to go and learn in a self-learned way, or it should be a guided learning for them? Your comments on this?
There are 2 separate comments. One is about learning what. If you believe that learning means taking the homework that is given by the high school and doing the homework, as we do in America quite a lot, learning about the formal education, that's clearly one thing. What we don't do today in this generation is that we have too much access to modern technology, like the cell phones, YouTube channel, social media. The best learning, I think, comes when the person is excited about reading a book. Nothing to do with his subject to pass the examinations. Encouraging the person, not at a high school level, but earlier, around middle school level, to start reading books. It is my view. If you read books, you imagine the characters. Mind works harder to create a visual image. If there is a hero in the book, you exaggerate the hero in a more positive way. If there's a villain in the book, you downgrade the villain even more negative way. Those imaginations are very important to create because it wires the brain in a video way that media cannot do. If I watch on YouTube, YouTube does all that for me, so I'm a lazy mind. So allowing the child the freedom to wander into a library or giving them books to read. Lord of the Rings was read by every young child. Very young infants love nurseries, you know, the nurseries when you teach them. Sesame Street program, when it came out, we were all amazed how successful it was. Children loved those characters. So you have to make learning fun, first of all, but allow the child the freedom to wander his or her mind. That's one side of the learning. The other side of the learning is that I think we as a parent protect our child too much today. I think we have become too much child-centric and not remaining enough parent-centric. We worry too much about our child. We plan out their career in the future. We impose on the child our wishes, what we want the child to be. I know when I grew up and when we had the independence of India, government decided 2 jobs will be very important for the future of the nation. So they invested in medical education and engineering. All the IITs were created and top medical schools were created, right? Parents always wanted you to be either engineer or they wanted you to be a medical doctor. Well, today's child is a lot more sophisticated. He or she has more choices. So I think allowing something about the choices and finding out what they want and then make that more meaningful is very important. And the last comment, I really like this saying, when the student is ready, the teacher will show up. Which means who teaches you is not a formal teacher with a certification, does tutoring at home, for example, or you go to school, but it is anybody. So can you create that sense of curiosity or a wonder? And that sense of curiosity and wonder comes not in the 4 walls of the home, but actually it comes from taking the child to different experiences. Traveling, as many places abroad, as strange places as possible, they will learn to improvise in that strange environment, even as a tourist, for example. And those experiences become very good learning platforms. I'm sorry, I did not give very specific answer probably, but that's intentional.
Yes, sir, I understand.
Parents are too much involved.
Yeah, yes, sir. Sir, how do you see Jagdish Sheth as a son and Jagdish Sheth as a father?
Jagdish Sheth as a son has been very important because I felt very strongly about my father, not knowing much about him struggling and coming out of the struggle. We bonded very well after he came out of his own clinical depression and struggle. And we didn't get together as often. You don't have to have a physical interaction all the time to be a good son or a father-son relationship. We had an excellent relationship by almost osmosis, you know, almost. It's not bonding, not playing any games together because he was of a different generation. So I did everything myself, but still, I think ultimately the bonding happens between son and the father when the son begins to respect and admire what the father is all about. What the father has done as a family provider or whatever role they play, very interesting. So to me, that's the relationship. My own relationship with my children is somewhat different, and I'll backtrack. In my generation, father was completely the authority. You did not speak unless you were asked to speak. Never interfered. Father gave with a signal, don't be in this space. We have a family conversation or a business conversation. You don't belong here at this time. And we all knew the silent language. In my generation, my children's generation, we were just getting a little more liberal, you know. There was a huge movement to say such an authoritarian role is not good for the father or the family. You should be a little more like Maslow's theory in motivation, you know, from safety, survival need to love and affection kind of a stuff. So I had a little more tolerant attitude toward my children when they were growing up. And we begin to do things together, mostly doing things together in terms of travel. I set aside time 3 times a year for family travel, giving them different experiences. It is in those experiences, encounters, you begin to bond with your child in a very different way. And today the relationship is, I think it's very good because my children come for advice. I go to them for advice. My daughter is a professor and I'm learning how to teach the younger generation after teaching 55 years. She is more knowledgeable and she does better than I do in the same classes. So I basically admire her. So how do you as a father begin to admire your child, your son or your daughter? That's very important. Now, last thing, I am now working with my grandchildren who are in college. And the older ones, we are writing a research paper together. Just fun. This is a topic which is very important because I have this whole policy institute, India, China, America relationship. And I clearly see the rise of Cold War II. Actually, we are calling about Cold War 2.0 because it's all about technology wars now. So comparing the Soviet Union time, she has studied that in her college in first or second year. This is her area of interest, international law, etc. And she wants to go to law school. It's a great joy to work with a young person and influence them or learn from them. So I think as the father, if you have a sense of learning from your children, reverse intergenerational influence, you are better off. Making the relationship a little more equal in some fashion, rather than having this father as a superior or a more formal authority and a son. I think those are the things that I've done. I'm enjoying my life.
That's great to learn from you, sir. Sir, this pandemic period of time, a lot of people were confined to their home. Typically in India, both father and mother, they are going to the office. They send the child quite early to the school and they assume that the responsibility of formal education of the child now is with the school and they have just a role to pay the fees or maybe attend a parent-teacher meeting or occasionally log into the website and find out what's the performance of the child. Maybe do a dipstick than doing a continuous part of it. This pandemic period has brought physically, mentally, and emotionally all of them together. Consequence of that has been varied. A lot of stress for the parents, a lot of stress for the students. Then add on to that, the school started also that there should be online education in that space. The outlet for venting that out, either by the parents or by the child, has been confined to both of them, impacting that relationship. So since you have done so much of research on relationship, I understand from relationship marketing point of view, but fundamentally it is from a relationship. If given a chance to redesign this relationship where physical proximity is higher and there is an external boundary or confinement, how it should have been, or what is the best way to manage this part?
Yeah, ultimately everything we do is time bound and location bound. You know, at one time we had no time, there's a time scarcity because if both parents are working, they don't have time to put in the family. They delegate to maids or delegate to servants, etc. In India, if you're a well-to-do family, outsourcing. In fact, I have a whole presentation called "Outsourcing Comes Home," cooking, cleaning, childcare. We outsource it. So in that way, the daily encounter is not there with the child. So one thing has to say that was a time constraint. Now it's the opposite. We have a physical constraint, but time flexibility. I can blend my work. I can blend my shopping, online shopping. and I can blend, in fact, my family, right? More flexibility. One has to take advantage of that, but nothing works better when you are confined together unless you have a routine. Who does what when? That's simple. Who has what space they occupy? So long as you have clear demarcation, it is almost like coexistence of people together. Now, where do we do that thing? We already do it, but we never think about it. When we go again on vacation, we are stuck in the same hotel room or in a resort or wherever we go. We are stuck in the car for 6-7 hours. For example, traveling together. We are location centric. We have learned how to manage there. So somehow this is important. I also believe that since we are so individualistic as species, we have a territorial impulse. This is my seat. This is my bedroom. This is my bench at the school or whatever it is, We are very territorial. And if somebody else imposes in that territory, which is my freedom now. So one has to get out of that mindset to say, and to me, this is the time where putting schedules together, routines together, engagement together in a programming way is very important, which means how can you have a school at home? There are times when child has to study. There are times when there's a playtime. So you're right. In a good family relationship, this has been quite better actually, because they finally are finding time together. In a family situation that has been under stress, this is almost a disaster. So we see actually physical violence rising, family violence. And so there are two consequences. I think it's a question of just putting a schedule together and routinizing.
Sir, since you have spoken about migrating from Myanmar, coming to India, settling in Chennai, and learning a couple of lessons about entrepreneurship, I like to bring Mr. Rustam Keraval and ask the same question to him to see how parallel it is with your life, so that he can tell us about why he became an entrepreneur. Yes, sir, your views.
Okay. So I agree with Dr. Sheth. My parents had a very large role in shaping my life. And my mother was very, very academically oriented, and my father brought me up in a very, very practical way. He taught me all the other skills, right from making me do the plumbing in the house, to the electrical in the house, to taking apart a car. I still remember when I was small that when I took apart the engine and put it back, I was still left with a few parts of the engine in my hand. Even after I had completed, I had moved what I forgot to put in. But I think all of those experiences shaped me into what I am, what I was. I realized that I was not there for a routine job. With the variation of the experiences that was given to me. I think I was given that kind of exposure. I did not lead that kind of protected life. And while there was a lot of stress on education, because both my parents did not come from an academic background, they hadn't even done the metric, but they believed that that was the only thing that they could give their children. That if they gave education, everything else would remain. And I think with that varied approach, with my father driving things in a different, I think that made things far more holistic, complete. And it's that exposure, I think, that gave me the spirit of adventure, do something different. So yes, it's thanks to them and their upbringing that I am what I am today.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for having similar kind of view, like Dr. Seth had this view. Again, after some time, I'll come back to you. So there is a question about this schoolboy who came Myanmar to Chennai.
Before that, can I just add to what he said?
Yes, sir.
In my case, similarly, even though my father was disabled, my two older sisters were very nurturing. And my two older brothers, actually, one was a scholar. And he influenced me toward more academic side. And the other brother was a businessman. He influenced me toward the practice. This blending, just like Rustam's family, One parent was educator, intellectual in that one was a pretty much a, the business type working. I think that combination of practical, know how and know why, when you get it early in your childhood, you become a more holistic person.
Thank you, sir. Nice question. Sir, I'll come back to the question which was asked. Is this boy from Myanmar to Chennai to US? How that happened, sir? You said physical displacement is not a problem. You have taken this as an opportunity. So this journey to US, up to you met James Howard. Maybe a portion of that from your life will be very interesting to listen to and be inspired about.
The dislocations happen because in Kutch, it's a desert place, you are born to get out, which is why I'll say so many Kutchis in Bombay itself. You will see Kutchis everywhere, like Rajasthani people are everywhere, worldwide even. I think because of that, one family member stays back, takes care of the aging parents or shop or whatever it is, and you say we have a surplus of people who need to go outside. When you go outside, you are totally at the mercy of the elements, which means you learn how to adapt or you don't survive. And so we eventually ended up by settling in Chennai because of that reason, and we were in Bombay, in Baroda, but ultimately in Chennai. And I was very fortunate to be a good student also. Ultimately, what matters is obsession to learn till you die or even afterwards, my view. And that learning was very important. And I was a good student. And a very interesting story, after finishing my BCom honors 5-year program at Loyola College, my major was income tax, with the idea that if you're a good Jew, you have to be a chartered accountant, typical stereotype, right? And then I found out that to be a chartered accountant in India, you have to do articleship, as they call it, or internship, we call it, for 2-3 years with minimum wages. If you're a good Jew, working for someone else is a shame. You are not good enough to be a businessman, right? Which is their culture. And working for someone else with no money is a double shame. So my oldest brother had a customer in Bombay, jeweler, who bought the jewelry boxes. And he said, I have a very young brother who is smart in everything he does. What can we do for him? And they advised, send him to America for a new degree called MBA. That's how I went up. My main interest was production management because we had a capacity problem. So my brother had the dream that I go get an education, come back and take the family business. And then I went there, I got turned on by psychology. I said, I want to be an academic, and the world is different. It's fascinating to find, compared to where you are to where you end up, but allowing that flexibility of mind, allowing that curiosity, anything that's an adversity converting into an opportunity, or being given the opportunity, I think is a very good thing young people can learn.
Sir, I have often seen this with very successful people. They're very obsessed with their goals. They set certain goals and they're very obsessed about that part. And they always try hard to look at that goal and achieve that goal. Then I read one book called Alchemist. There also the alchemist is advising the boy about the goal, the little boy, the wondering boy about the goal and how he should achieve the goal. So what is being a psychologist and behavioral scientist? What is your thought about the successful people and not so successful people? And then this idea of obsession coming in between. First, I would like to listen this from you.
Yeah. Ultimately, I found that all successful people have 3 fundamental traits, and there is 1/4 overarching, which I will come. First of all, in whatever they are passionate about, they become experts. You see young people are so comfortable with social media, with smartphones. I have no idea how it works. So I had to give it to my grandchildren to say, tell me what to do with these functions. Right? They're obsessed, they know. Expertise is clearly one. All successful people surprisingly have empathy, which means they have a good listening skills. And that can be developed, or compassion if you wanted to use the word, They're compassionate people, actually. Many of them are what I call McDonald's, which is a fast food restaurant, and they're famous French fries. What's a French fry? McDonald's French fries is crispy on the outside, but soft on the inside. All compassionate people, even though they may look tough outside, actually have a very soft heart. Soft heart for other people, for the society, for the nature. That's common denomination, I find. And the third one is that they really are enthusiastic. They have passion. You know, hard work without passion is a burnout. Many senior executives will tell you, or politicians even will tell you, this job is no longer a fun. So unless you have a self-motivation, anything you do is driven by your boss or driven by circumstances you won't enjoy, you will age very fast, physically, surprisingly. You'll put more stress on yourself. But if you enjoy what you do, which is what these people have. So ultimately, those three things are very foundational. And the fourth one is that what is the mission, which is where the goal comes in. And I'm a very strong advocate. The business of business is not just business, making money. Business of business is more than business. And I have a whole write-up on this area that shows you conclusively that the society or a community and the business are like two peas in a pod, each one interdependent on the other. It's like a two-horse buggy. Even though it may be a lead horse, there is another horse that you need it to carry out the journey essentially. So to me, having that goal is very important because it allows your mind and your body and your resources to concentrate, get more efficiency out of it and more effectiveness. You see that among scientists all the time. You see among academic writers all the same. They're just obsessed in many ways in a positive way.
I'm spellbound by this answer, sir. Rustam, sir, you have any comments about this obsession part? At least Seema and me, we understand why you were asking this question to you. Yes, sir.
No, I think business and being an entrepreneur takes a lot of determination, a lot of time. And I think it's a 24-hour job. And unless there is that obsession to reach a certain goal, I don't think it's going to happen. A lot of hurdles generally come. Life never comes easy. And there are a hell of a lot of reasons why one may need to give up or one may need to feel that they give up. But it's finally that obsession and determination that makes you overcome that. And that is what gives you more confidence. Yeah, so I guess without obsession, without passion of getting to a certain place, it's not going to happen.
Thank you, sir. And Dr. said, I have seen these characteristics of Mr. Rustam, that he's very obsessed with the work, he's very focused on his work. That made me to ask this question to him, what drives him, where he gets that energy to work so hard there. I can see the reflection there. Sir, a lot of our students, after completing our schools, class 12, many of them will go to US. So also long years back, you also went to US. In that way, in a post-COVID situation, what are those things that you expect these students to do or work on? If you can draw some examples of your experience when you landed in US, can you just guide us in that way for the students who are going for their higher education?
You're asking me, right? Or
yes, sir. No, sir. To you, sir.
Okay. If you have seen a movie called Coming to America, if you're not, please see the movie. It's very similar. You come from such a different culture, which is India, to another culture, which is America. There are two polarities in some ways. Europe may be somewhere in the middle, Canada may be in the middle. It's really a contrast. And then you try to say, how do you cope with it, right? And you take the attitude, as Rustam said, it's determination. You have a goal to achieve. You have a mission in some fashion. So I have all kinds of encounters. Let me tell you what they are. I went to an MBA school at Pittsburgh, which was a private university. And in those days, all MBA students had to have a dress code, as in India, some colleges have. White shirt, dark tie, dark suit. And I had made my suit in India with color. I mean, we prefer color in India. We are colorful people. We love saris, colors. Think about that one, not just pastel things. Well, my dean of students told me, you look different. And I said, of course, I know I look different. I was sort of joking with him. No, he says, no, I'm serious. You have to wear a white shirt. So I had to go and buy a white shirt locally from a top department store. I had an American friend, David Miller, who drove. I didn't know how to drive the car even. He took me to the place, parked in the downtown area in a parking meter, went up there and I asked for a shirt. I remember the brand name Arrow, which was a top name at that time. And the clerk said, here is your shirt, your size. And I said, how much? And he said, $5. My Indian instinct immediately said, how about $2.50? See, negotiating, bargaining. And he's stunned. The sales clerk is stunned. He has no discretion to offer any price negotiation points. It's fixed price. So I said, take it, $3, take it or leave it, because my friend has parked the car. We have to go back to the class, etc. And my son educated, my friend educated me that actually in America, you don't have bargaining in the retail phenomenon. But every business transaction is always price negotiated. So that's very interesting. So that's a first cultural encounter. I've just gone on and on. I never knew a supermarket in my life. So I'm standing in front and suddenly the glass door opens and I'm saying, what happened? Who opened this door? I go and try to touch I couldn't touch the vegetables and fruits because in India, you are not allowed to touch. The vendor says, don't touch. And then I'm just staring at the foods, hoping somebody will come to help me. Nobody comes. Then one customer says, she knew I was a foreign student. And she says, by the way, you are allowed to pick it up. It is self-service, okay? So I didn't know no self-service. It just goes on and on, encounters after encounters. So you learn from them and take it as a learning experiences.
Thank you, sir. So there is a question. This question is about, you have worked with so many governments.
Can I come back to previous one?
Yes, sir.
We get foreign students from India at Emory University, as NYU gets, all the top places get it. What I find is fascinating that our students from India already knew each other from the same high schools that they went to in Bombay, Delhi, typical cities. And they continue their behavior the same way. They hang around with each other. They always order the food from the same place. Their moms do some cooking, freeze fry, and send it out. My view is that's not learning. That's continuing the same. If you are in America, get into the American rhythm, find something interesting. Of course, within your faith restrictions. I'm a vegetarian, for example, so I don't touch fish or meat or anything. But within that limit, there are enough alternatives. So learning from experiencing differently. And as Rustam said, entrepreneurship is a 24/7. One of the key elements of entrepreneurship is that you are allowed to fail. In fact, most entrepreneurs fail several times before they succeed. It gives you the inner strength to say, I'm still having my conviction. Same thing, learning by going to other friends other than Indian friends, then you are continuing the same way. Therefore, you will not become more holistic.
Thank you, sir. Sir, there is a question. The question is about this governments or the heads of the state heads becoming entrepreneurial in character. I know a bit about your work in Singapore. Maybe if you can, because you also do geopolitical analysis, if you can tell us in a brief how Singapore evolved as a great nation, or particularly as a logistics center, logistics hub in the world, and what learnings are there from that for our students and parents.
Yeah. First of all, clearly, you have to very much admire the journey of the first Prime Minister, Lee Kuan Yew. He transformed the nation from something that was really more in exile, primarily by Malaysia, into that island of a Chinese minority in some fashion. And rising from that to become one of the top nations in the world is a remarkable journey. And he has a book of his own biography or autobiography, From Third World to First World, right? It's very interesting. At that time, when I got involved with them in late 80s, late 88, 89, they had a Vision 2000 project, and their interest was to make Singapore a major manufacturing hub. Jurong, which was a British pier, Navy pier, was given back to them. So infrastructure was there. Now we invite the manufacturers. So my view was that you will sustain the manufacturing only if you have some advantages. Do you have a raw material advantage where you have to do value add there? No. Do you have a large market because making sense as opposed to exporting makes sense? No, 2.5 million people. Do you have low wages? By the time Singapore become very affluent, so the wages were not competitive. Unlike Bangladesh, where you can still do the garment quite a lot because wages are still inexpensive. And so I said, rather than becoming a manufacturing country, you should become a distribution country. So 4 flows: flow of products, Singapore seaport, benchmark with Rotterdam, which was the best in class at that time, and surpass them, which is what they did. I still take a tremendous satisfaction by staying in a hotel, which allows me to look into the marina, the seaport. Used to be like 15, 20 ships. Today, there are hundreds of ships waiting. It became the largest shipping hub in the world. That's determination. That's the vision going after that. Flow of money. Singapore does not have large corporations. They're all regional foreign multinationals. So we said stock market like Tokyo or Hong Kong will not work. Hong Kong was the model in that case. So they were all, and so we said then instead we should become a private equity, private capital, private banking, Swiss model, which led to Temasek, which is a major success. Became a capital hub. Flow of people. You make money on the flows now as a service distribution country. And Changi Airport, they ramped up the airport, actually got the traffic from Australia, New Zealand, that was aligning in Asia with China primarily, Southeast Asia and China. And that traffic was wide open. East-west, you could not fly with non-stop because the engines were not as yet long range. You had to stop in Taipei or Hong Kong or Tokyo, then you connect. So it turns out that north-south traffic was very possible to hub, which became a major success. And the last one is flow of information, which they already knew how to do it, make cities smart primarily, which they did quite a lot. Now we have added 2 more flows, flow of culture. Singapore is make money, 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 time, time, time. And young people are so affluent, they're not bonding with the nation properly even. So we said we need to allow more culture. So we have allowed all the cultural events now, allow everybody. That is a change. And then the flow of knowledge, which is the future science primarily. So it's a very fascinating journey. And I learned a lot. I must tell you, every consulting project you do, you are a learner. You learn more than what you even contribute sometimes. They're just unique projects and your knowledge becomes more widespread and more holistic pretty much. So repositioning the nation is something I am very passionate about. I love to do that work because it's more macro in many ways, more complicated.
Thank you, sir. Sir, in the period of time in your career, you also have contributed big time in Indian corporates. I would like to draw your attention to your friendship with Mr. Ajim Premji. He is one of the big philanthropists of India. I know that in management academia, you are one of those great persons who have made and also distributed that wealth for benefit of people there. So some of your experiences with Mr. Ajim Premji.
He's a remarkable individual. For somebody who was sent again in that 50s, you sent your child to study manufacturing, engineering. So he went to Stanford. His father died suddenly, so he did not complete his degree, had to come back. But for an engineer, he has more understanding of numbers than any other CEO that I know. And he remembers. Wipro is a large corporation now. But at the board meetings, I was amazed how much detailed knowledge he has about every financial metrics. First of all, that's clearly one. Secondly, he is a great leader. He's one of those, what I would call a good diamond cutter, who suddenly realizes a rough stone and knows to polish and mentor, which generates enormous loyalty for him by his people. So he has picked up people either from Tata Administrative Services or from BITS Pilani, which has been a major pipeline for Wipro from old days. And he provides mentorship. He gives them the chance to do different things. Fail, it's okay to fail, I'm here to take care of you. And they become more like comrades, surprisingly, as opposed to boss and a subordinate. I think he has that knack of making you very comfortable with him. And third thing is that he's a great learner. First of all, he likes to read books after books. And he's obsessed about learning. And he wants to learn from others and does not have the ego to say, I know everything. And this internal passion, I think, comes from the family again, because his grandfather also went to Burma, which was an opportunity. He comes from Kutch, as we do. And I think that always was the notion that, how do I contribute back to the society? You don't need so much of wealth anyhow, So how can you contribute, and where can you contribute with a properly business acumen at the same time? So it's not just charity and giving away, but contributing by time, talent, expertise, and money, treasure, as we call it. So he's a real remarkable human being. And I tell you, history will recognize as one of the great, great leaders of India.
Sir, any other business leader or leader that you came across in your life from US, any part, whom you take with so much of respect like you have with Mr. Jim Premji? And what are the reasons for that?
There are so many, and we don't have much time. I have to get off
Yes.
this
Yes,
webinar
sir.
because I have to, I'm becoming a student to learn how to teach online teaching at 12 o'clock my time. So I have to switch over. But I will tell you generally, let me tell you, I have learned so much from certain corporations and the individuals rather than one person. Probably the two most significant have been Whirlpool Corporation in Benton Harbor, Michigan. Any company that is located in a small town as headquarters, even though they may be multinationals, as Whirlpool is, Walmart is, for example, Kohler in toilet and flushing, sanitary, appliances, etc. In small towns, the family who lives there is a great equalizer, because even though they are wealthy, they cannot hide in a gated community. Every Sunday they have to go to church. In our case, Christian people go to church, and they're respected, but church reminds them there is somebody above you. You are not the ultimate authority. Your managers are your neighbors. So their kids go to the same school. There's only one school as your kids go, or grandchildren go, whatever the age. So you talk with your managers as your neighbors also. Your suppliers have come nearby you because you provide them the business. So you have a relationship with suppliers that goes beyond transaction. And also customers to some extent. So given all that, I've learned how the real business is done in a very different way than driven by shareholder value. This whole system got corrupted in the 70s when corporations, all located in small towns, went to where the capital markets were, like New York or London. And there they only see one stakeholder, which is a shareholder, and analysts and the opinion makers and institutional investors. They were driven by them. They forgot their role in society. So I've learned more from Whirlpool. I've learned so much from the Bell system, the telephone system, which was very interesting because almost like a non-profit entity. It's like a government treasure. Monopoly, of course. Bell Labs was brilliant, brilliant R&D. And there, every manager had to do some social work. Some of them were mayors of cities, part-time for a small town. And they're fantastic. So they are all very good human beings, but they do not get ego in the process. And you can see the ego without talking to the people. Ego is like breathing air. Ego travels when you have a meeting. People know that person has an ego. When I see somebody having an ego, I turn myself off. It's not a place for me to learn or even to contribute. So those two organizations, among many others, have been very important for my learning.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. I will try to bring this conversation to a closer now with last 1 minute remark from chairman, so that I can conclude the session. I know you have an engagement for your online class part of it. Mr. Rustam Kerawala, please.
Just a big thank you, a lot of learning. We won't pull this too long, but definitely interesting. And thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Singh, would you like to have a few words?
I mean, there is so much to speak, but so less of time. And I'm truly impressed by what Dr. Sheth said. He's still going to be a student back to online learning. And here we are discussing about businesses and management through an online system. Amazing, sir. Hats off to you. And this was an ocean of knowledge that we have gained over the past a few minutes. We wish we could have you for a much longer time, but really appreciate and thank you from the Vidya group of schools for sharing this knowledge with us. And I'm very, very thankful to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
Really enjoyed.
Thank you, sir. I have got the opportunity to be with you for a lot of conversations and meetings, but never got a chance to listen to the life story.
That's right.
The disguise of the students questioning you, I also learned about your life. I know and respect and worship you like an academician. You know that part, how much respect I give it to you. But I never knew the personal side of the story because I have always seen you on the dais and making a fun on yourself and then pitching on the subject there. For the first time I got a chance to look into your life. Maybe I'll also get more opportunities to interact with you and learn more from you. I'll try to imbibe some of the values that you have given. I also like to thank all the participants who are here on Zoom, as well as the parents and students who are there on Facebook Live and YouTube Live, those who are listening to you. One of the key drivers is the humbleness and what you talked about, expertise, empathy, and enthusiasm. And there is a great message that you have given to the parents about how to manage a child by looking at the time and the location part of it. I'm sure this presentation and conversation is going to influence our parents, guide our parents to the new things that they should look at the life in the post-COVID world. Thank you, sir. Thank you again for your time and your talk.
Thank you, Tapan, for inviting me. This was exciting for me also. And thanks for your friendship. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you all. Thank you, Rustam sir. Thank you, Singh, everybody, and good night to all of you.